Hello and welcome back. In this video we will learn about activities, activity life cycle, and how you can create a new activity. So first of all, I will use a picture to make you understand about activities. So in shorter words, activity is a page that contains some content, and on clicking on something, if you might have seen that you switch to another page. That's actually switching between the activities, means that whenever you clicked something and a new page opened, that means that's a new activity that is being opened. For example, on the left here there is an Android, and there is a Android button here. If I click this, a new activity will open that displays details about that Android. So actually it is creating another activity and opening that, and person thinks that it's the same page, but you can see that if something pops up and a new activity opens, that's actually a new activity is been opened. So if I click on this button again, it will open the next activity. So this is how the activities work in Android. Activities are the pages in simple words, and we can use them to display our content. For example, if we are creating a news app, so the home page of the news app will contain all of the news, but that will contain brief news. If you want to check the details of particular news, you will click on one news and it will open another activity, and that activity will have the explanation of that particular news. So this is how activities work in Android. So I'm going to create a new activity here. So to demonstrate this, for that what you need to do is right click on your package name and just go to new, and from bottom here there is a activity tab, and you need to select any kind of activity you want, but the most used are which we will use is empty activity. So I'm going to create another activity and I'm going to name it second activity. Alright, so every activity has two files, a layout file and a Java file. So these two files make one activity. So when you create an activity, the layout file and the Java file will automatically be created. Also, you might have noticed or not, there is a manifest file under manifest. This contains all of the configurations of the app, and if you open this, your new activity will be registered here. As you can see here that it adds an activity tab with the dot name of your activity, and this dot refers to the package name of your project. So this refers to this activity life cycle, and then the second activity. So I'm going to create a text view here inside of this activity. Text view and wrap content, and text is going to be second activity, and its size should be little bit bigger, let's say 45 sp. So now I'm going to center it. For that I'm going to add constraints to it. So now I'm going to the first activity, and that is the main activity, and I'm going to put another text here like this is first activity. I'm going to increase its size, text size. It is going to be, let's say 24 sp, even bigger 30 sp, and its style should be bold. So this is first activity. So I want that whenever a button here I'm going to place a button here. Whenever this button is clicked, it should open another activity, and that will be the second activity. So for that I'm going to make this button work, and its text is going to be open second activity. Alright, so next I'm going to have a click listener for this. There are two ways uh, to handle the click event on this button. First one, I've already shown you that you add on click here, and you specify the function that should be executed whenever this button is clicked. But in this video I will show you another way of doing this. So for that you need to have an ID of button. So I've already given it button. So here I'm going to create a button, btn for example, and I'm going to find this with it, find view by ID, and I'm going to link it with its view. That's ID was button. Alright, one way was to create a function and link that function to the layout file. The other way is to create a click listener. You need to have the object of button and dot sign dot set on click listener. Alright, now we have got click listener, but we need to create a callback function that will be called whenever this button is been clicked. So for that we need to add new and capital O, and when you you will write capital O, it will automatically show you view dot on click listener. So you need to press enter here. It will automatically create on click function for you. So this function will be executed whenever this button is pressed. So I'm going to start another activity in this in this button, because we want the second activity to be opened whenever this button is pressed. So for that we need to create an intent. If you don't know intent, I will explain them later. For now you can understand it as that it's a container that holds the information that which activity to start and from which activity to start, and if you want to pass some data to the other activity, then you can do that with intents. So for that I have to give it two parameters, two arguments. First one is the activity that is calling this, and that is actually the main activity. Main activity dot this, it's actually the context of it or object of it or reference to this activity. And now we need to give a class that will be called whenever this button is pressed. So we want the activity we want to open, we need to give that activity class here. So I want to open second activity, then I need to specify its class by dot class. Alright, so I've created an intent. Now I need to call a built-in function, that is start activity, and we need to pass this intent to this. That's it. We have created second activity, and we have created a button in the first activity, and whenever this button will be pressed, the second activity will open up. So I'm going to start my emulator here. It has some previous project running, so now I'm going to run this. So there we go, our first activity, that is main activity, is been opened. So whenever I should click this button, it should open another activity. So I'm going to click it, and as you can see that it has opened another activity, that is the second activity. And whenever I press the back button on my emulator, it will switch back to the previous activity. Here we go. So we are again back to the first activity. Again, if I click on the second first button, that will open up the second activity. So now I'm going to create another button in second activity that will go back to the first activity. So how can we do that? Just create a button in second activity, and I'm going to have it here, button wrap content, and its text going to be back, and I'm going to set its constraints. It should be up top here. So for that, next we need to do is to link this. I'm going to have an on click event here, so I'm going to call a function called go back. As you know that this function doesn't exist in second activity, so in order to create that function, we can manually create this function, as well as we can just click Alt Enter from keyboard here, and it will create, and select the second one, it will automatically create this function for us. So it has created a function for us. So in this function, what we want to do is, whenever this function is clicked, we want is it should go to the previous activity. One way of going to the previous activity is this, that I should finish this activity or close this second activity and open the previous one. The other way is that when you might have seen that when I pressed back button on emulator, it brings the first activity in. So what happens in the background? In the background, it just closes the second activity, and the previous activity is resumed. That was paused and that is resumed. So what we can do here is we can just close this activity on this on the back button press, and the previous activity will automatically resume. For that, for closing this activity, we have a function called finish, that is built-in function that is written in this app compat activity. So we need to just specify, just make a one function call only. So this will do the trick for us. Let's see how this works. Alright, so as you can see here, the activity is open. So whenever I click second activity, open second activity, it has opened second activity. Now I want to press this back button to go back to the previous activity, and if I click, that activity is, second activity is closed, and the first activity is been resumed. So I can click it again and again, and it will repeat this process. So this was about opening or creating another activity. Now I want to show you that how can we pass some data. If we want to pass some data from first activity to the other activity, how can we do that? So for that, I've already told you that we have an intent that contains the information of the class from where we are calling it, and the class we want to open after it. But it also takes some other information with it. That's kind of a container or a bus that goes from first activity to the other by containing some kind of data. Let's say I want to pass it some data called, I'm going to create a local variable string here, string info is equal to I've been sent from first activity. So I want to send this data. So how can I do that is intent dot put extra. This is a built-in function in intent that we can use to specify it a value, a key value pair. So there are different kinds of values we can pass. We can pass a value whose name is string, means that whose key is string, and whose value is boolean or byte or character or short, or all of the primitive data types in Android or Java. So what I want to do is I want to pass this string here. So for that I'm going to give it a key that could be anything, and for this case I'm going to give it info, and the value is going to be info string. Alright, so this way I can pass a string to it, and as you can see that it has an error that this function is a function that is been created in inner class. This is actually on view, new view is an inner class which contains this on click listener, so it is been created from there. So we cannot pass information through a local variable to this function. So in order to do that, either we have to create this function final, or the other way is to let me show you that if I create it final, the error will be gone. The other way is to make it data member of this class or global variable for this class. So this way it also resolves the problem. Now we have passed the data. Now we need to fetch the data we have passed in the previous activity. So how can we do that? We can get that intent by a function called getIntent, and we can have all of the information that we have added to that particular intent. So let's say I want to get the string extra that I've added here, added in the main activity. So I can get that by get extra, and from here there are plenty of methods. You need to select the one which has string extra. Here is the this is string array. We need to get is string extra, so we can type it like this. So this is the function we were looking for, get string extra, and here we need to pass its key, the key we have provided it in the main activity, and that was info. Alright, so this will return me the information that I've passed here, this information. So I need to store that information somewhere. So I'm going to create a function variable called string info, and I have received that information here. So now I need to set this information to text view that we have in the second activity, and I can find that text view by text view. What was its ID? txt, let's say, and I can go to second activity and r.id.txt. Alright, now I need to set that information that I've received from the first activity, so I can do that by set text, and the info will be set to it. So let's see this in action. So here is our first activity, and I'm opening second activity, and there you can see the information we have passed. I've been sent from first activity. Great. So this was how we can pass information through intents. There is another shortcut that we can use is and that's I've taught you about static variables. So I can create this variable as static like this, and I don't need to pass it. I can directly access this information in second activity, and the that way is actually we can use here the name of the class that was main activity and its static variable that was info, and I can access that info directly here. So this is the main advantage of having static variables. So let's see this in action. Open second activity, and you can see that this shortcut worked, and it does a nice job. So in future when we have to pass information, we will use this method. Also we will use the intent method. Both have their ins and outs, so you can use it according to your requirements. So that's it for this video. See you in the next one.